You are listening to Packers Talk Radio Network.
PackersTalk.com.
Eddie Lacy, Mike Daniels, Gilbert Brown, Don Barclay, Micah Hyde, your Green Bay Packers, yesterday's legends and today's superstars. From corporate or nonprofit events to private parties, add some spice, hire a Packers player from Mayfield Sports Marketing. For details, just go to PackersTalk.com and click on Player Appearances.
Are you looking for some signed Packer memorabilia?
Look no further than Waukesha Sports Card.
If a Green Bay Packer can sign it, Waukesha Sports Cards has it.
Check our website for upcoming Packer player and legend signings.
Go to WaukeshaSportsCards.com.
Welcome to Titletown Sound.
Babo? Who's Babo? Oh, Bobbo! That's me. Present. I'm here. Sorry, my secretary didn't write that down right.
I don't think I'd know Spencer Havener if I tripped over it.
You're the worst. You're the worst ever.
Jeremy, you love my sense of humor, right?
Yeah, it's my favorite ever.
I think Jermichael Finley could be back next year, Jeremy.
Do you?
I also think Omarius Hines could be back next year.
I hate you so much. I hate you.
We chuck it down the field, we run fast, and we score touchdowns. I have nothing more to add. That's it.
Titletown Sound is in the hood, yo. Or should I say, in the hoodie.
Oh, my
Episode
gosh.
60, popping all up in your eardrums. It's the Rob Davis edition of the show.
Ooh.
This week we're talking about squirrels. We're talking about Jeremy's recent trip to an all-you-can-eat buffet with Eddie Lacy. And Chris's recent recording session with Snoop Dogg.
It's Snoop Lion to you.
Snoop Lion. Oh, excuse me. Yes, I don't want to get in trouble with that East Coast, West Coast stuff. But I'm Dave Bobke, by the way. You'll be hearing me now and then. Not throughout the podcast, which is probably for the best. We also have Chris Christofko here. Chris, how are you?
I'm very well.
Very good. And Jeremy Vanderlinden is back with us after a 1-week absence. Jeremy, how are you doing?
I am doing much better than I was.
That is very good. Yeah. Jeremy was a sick man last week, and he's, well, still a very sick man for those of us who know him, but never mind that now. Let's talk about the game that was the Green Bay Packers and the Minnesota Vikings. The Packers back in the win column. Yay!
Yay!
Woo! So, first things first, we got to talk about the defense because the Packer defense was actually really fun to watch again. And Chris, I'll throw this to you first. I mean, they stuffed Adrian Peterson. They were hammering Teddy Bridgewater. What was the highlight of the defensive performance that the Packers put on Sunday?
For me, the highlight was one series that I can remember, and I'm not sure this is how you want me to go with this, but there was one series where after the Mastay blocked, whatever it was, punt, I thought, here we go again. And the defense not only gets a 3-and-out, but I believe had a sack on the series. It pushed them out and it pushed them back. They had to punt. It was fantastic. I mean, that's what the defense did all day. They came through in the clutch, played fantastically well, stopped Adrian Peterson. I mean, just last week we were complaining about the defense, and I'll still complain about it because of the lack of consistency. But I'll tell you what, on Sunday, they looked fantastic, and it was everything you needed to stop a Vikings team that looked like it was going to be able to just run right through the Packers.
Yeah, my highlight has to be the one Sam Shields play with Adrian Peterson out in the open field, and Sam Shields makes a high-quality tackle like you've never seen from Sam Shields before. I don't think we've ever seen Sam Shields actually line up with a guy in the open field and be able to bring him down, especially a guy like Adrian Peterson. It was a special moment. I will remember it forever. I will probably tattoo it on my chest. It was that great.
That's an interesting thought, Jeremy. And just promise me you're never going to show me that tattoo, okay?
Oh, I will. That's when I'm at your house, Bobbo. I'm going to be shirtless every time now. So,
I'll be sure to burn my house down before you get here. That said, one player in particular that had a great game, Datone Jones. I know, Jeremy, you and I were, more so I think you were a big fan of Datone Jones. Our friend Brian was a big fan when we drafted him. But man, he had a pretty good day, didn't he?
He had Datone Jones has been on and off this season. Let's say that differently. Datone Jones started the season slow, and he's progressed as the season has gone along. He's gotten a lot better. But what we're starting to see now is the Packers are using him in a new role. They have him at outside linebacker, but his pass rush has gotten so much stronger this year. And he talked about that in the offseason. He talked about how he felt like he was always really close to actually completing and finishing plays, but he just was missing that one thing. And he did some yoga in the offseason, and he felt like that extra flexibility would be enough to help him finish some of those plays where, he's bending and getting around the corner. And the Packers have put him at outside linebacker, and I think it's a testament of his athleticism, because a guy of his size playing at that position, it's really impressive. And what's really interesting to me is to see him and Nick Perry at outside linebacker at the same time. It's a lot of meat on the football field. It's got to be horribly difficult to run against when your two outside linebackers are actually defensive end size. Talk about outside contain. Those dudes better be able to hold their position. I like what the Packers are doing with him. I'm impressed with Datone, and I can't wait to see more. And I'm kind of wondering if maybe they're putting him at outside linebacker to see if he can be the Julius Peppers replacement when Peppers retires. They like Julius Peppers' size, and they like him at outside linebacker with the length that he has, and maybe they're hoping Datone can be the same.
And it was nice on Sunday. We actually had a Julius Peppers sighting. I wasn't quite sure if he was still on the active roster anymore, but he at least made a play or two. I think Jones has been really progressing, and Sunday was kind of the culmination of that so far. He looked fantastic. And the more disruptive he can be, the better this defense is going to be. The strength of this defense all starts up front, and the more pressure they get. Look at the last 3 weeks with no sacks, no wins, and then you see against the Vikings, they sacked Bridgewater, 6 times? The more pressure they get, the more successful they're going to be. And I know that's not exactly earth-shattering analysis, but with Jones coming on, when many were putting that bust label on him, I think he's proven he's not a bust. He's getting better, and he's going to be one of the more valuable members of this defense, at least in the next year.
Well, he's a big guy. He's been playing with a bum ankle, and now that his ankle is healthy, I think we're seeing what the Packers actually expected to get out of Datone Jones. His first 2 seasons. Wait, was last year's rookie year or second year? It's awesome that I don't know. So there you go.
I'm not bailing you out on that.
I don't know. I don't know everything. But I'll say this: Datone Jones has had problems with his ankle, and with a guy that size, it's going to be enough to actually throw you off your game, regardless of how good you can be. And so for the Packers to draft him and bring him in, they were expecting what they're getting now, and that was there the whole time.
But let me ask you though, how long? At Mike Daniels, it's not some players it takes a little while to progress. So
right,
it's nice to see that. It's nice to see that he is though. That's certainly encouraging.
Yeah, this is his 3rd year. So his first 2 seasons, I was correct. His first 2 seasons, Datone Jones, he had his ankle issues, and now he's starting to progress. And I think you're right. It's not just a matter of his ankles. His rookie year, he was probably not going to be that great anyways, even if his ankle was healthy. It takes time for young guys to figure it out. In his 2nd year, he had a bum ankle. Now it's his 3rd year, and he's starting to show up. So I would say Datone maybe hasn't really gotten a fair shake at proving himself, at least with the fans. And so now we're seeing him play at a high level, and people are kind of surprised. But I don't know if we should be surprised. This is what should be expected, and I'm happy to see him actually doing it. And like I said, I'm excited to see some more.
All right, speaking of being excited, I kind of buried the lead because, of course, the Packers won because of Jeff Janis.
Absolutely.
And only had a couple balls thrown his way, drew a pass interference call because that's the way Janis rolls. And also had a couple kick returns. Had a very nice kick return there. So the question that I'm going to pose to you, Jeremy, is do you believe that Jeff the Squirrel Janis should continue to be returning kicks, or do you think if Micah Hyde comes back soon that he should go back to returning kicks, or what do you think? Should Janis stay put in the return game?
I think I'd like to see a little bit more, but as far as options for kick returners, I'd like to see Jeff Janis stay there. especially with Ty Montgomery. When Ty Montgomery comes back, I think the team they're planning on having him to use in the offense to help that offense. And with a guy who's coming off an injury that now he's re-injured, I would prefer to not put him in a position where he's going to keep messing that up. If Janis can be a decent kick returner, I'd like to see him stay there. I think he should stay there. Like I said, though, I'd like to see him do it a few more times. He's had 2 kick returns. He's averaging 41 yards, or he averaged 41 yards. It was a good day for him. Let's see him do it more than once. But at the same time, we know Jeff Janis has a tendency to mess up and do stupid things and just kind of look like a goofball. That might happen, okay? He had 2 good kick returns. Next week, we might be really disappointed in him as a kick returner and never want to talk about it again. So it's kind of one of those wait-and-see things. But if it could work out, I would like Jeff Janis to stay there.
Well, here's the thing. Remember how explosive Ty Montgomery was, especially in the beginning of the year on kick returns. We're talking about our 4th receiving option at this point. I'm not protecting our 4th receiving option and putting Janis back there instead of Montgomery. So I do disagree with that. I would rather see Montgomery back there, assuming that he's healthy enough that he's going to be more effective than Janis. If he's still hobbled, then okay, maybe. But not because I want to see Janis or protect Montgomery, just until Montgomery is ready to go, because he really is dynamic. And yeah, Janis looked good on Sunday, but we also saw him returning kicks in the preseason a couple of times, and he didn't look so hot. So right. I'm not sold that Jeff Janis should be there. But I see the argument. I don't think it's ludicrous to say that, but I'd rather have Montgomery back there if it's possible.
I want Montgomery to stay healthy, because even though he's the 4th receiving option, I think we've seen that the top 3 receiving options aren't getting it done. So, if Montgomery can come in and he's the 4, but he puts up good numbers, great. If the one guy that's producing on your offense is healthy and he's doing well, I'd rather not put that guy at risk. I don't think it matters which number he is on the depth chart. I think what matters most is the top 3 guys haven't been great. They've been inconsistent at best, especially, Randall Cobb. We're going to talk about that. Devontae Adams with his injury, but he drops a ton of passes, and sometimes he's embarrassing. James Jones disappears. He has a tendency to disappear because he's 90 years old. So, I would prefer Ty Montgomery to maybe get more reps on offense and stay healthy, on the caveat that Jeff Janis can return kicks and not mess it up. Now, there's no guarantee there, so I'm not going to say for sure that that's what I want to see happen. This is just if this happens, I want this to happen. So, it's kind of a wait and see.
All right. Well, you mentioned Randall Cobb's drops. How much of a concern is that for you, Jeremy, going forward? Because he and Rodgers, usually they're in sync and they're just clicking, and they're just, when they get going, they're a runaway steam engine, power locomotive, something. I lost control of my analogy there. But this seems like one of the big reasons the offense has been so out of sync is that those 2 in particular have been out of sync. So is Cobb dropping the football a big concern for you going forward, or do you think this is going to get solved in the next week or 2?
I don't know if it'll get solved. I think it is a big concern, and I think it's been a big concern because Randall Cobb has been that guy that bails Aaron Rodgers out. When on a broken play, Randall Cobb's one of the guys that's been most dependable. When Rodgers gets out of the pocket, that he can find Cobb, get the ball to him, and it can turn out to be a positive play. But this week, Randall Cobb went 2 of 9. He was targeted 9 times. He only caught 2 balls. The week before, he was targeted 10 times. He only caught 5. So he went 50%. But it's just Aaron Rodgers needs to be able to depend on somebody. And usually that's Randall Cobb. And it's concerning. It's very concerning. And you know what? This isn't just these last 2 weeks. Against the Panthers, he was targeted 12 times. He caught 4 balls. This is a problem that's been going on, not something that just happened against the Vikings. Randall Cobb has been dropping the football a lot.
Well, but to be fair, how many drops we don't know how many drops there were in those games. The targeted numbers also include poor passes or good coverage. But I will give you, on Sunday he looked bad. I'm not overly concerned because it's not like this is something that's been a career issue with him. James Jones at one point was labeled as a pass dropper. I just think they've been out of sync, and I'm hoping that they will get back in sync. So the encouraging thing is that the offense moved the ball. They scored points without Randall Cobb being much of a factor. James Jones ended up being a big factor, but I think it's encouraging that they can win despite those things, and they can perform as an offense. I don't think he's all of a sudden forgotten how to catch the football. I think he'll be better.
No, I think it is the problem you're saying. I think they are out of sync, but it is concerning. Yes, Rodgers has been off this season, and we've seen some really crappy quarterback play from Rodgers. And really crappy is a relative term. Really crappy for Rodgers, okay? Because it's still pretty good compared to a lot of guys. But it's not been what we're used to, and that's frustrating. But Randall Cobb needs to be more consistent. Otherwise, I mean, Rodgers is having trust issues with all the guys on the field, and it sucks that one of the most dependable receivers that he's had for the last few years is now part of the problem, and it's another guy that he has a problem trusting. I think it is an issue. I think until something starts clicking, there's going to be a problem there. Randall Cobb can be the answer to the question, what do the Packers do to improve their offense? He can be the answer, but he's got to start catching the football when it gets to him. And against the Vikings, it was absolutely terrible. It was frustrating to watch. And it's not like he's dropping passes like, early in the game or on first down, and it's like, okay, well, you get two more or whatever before you punt. It's on critical plays. It's deep balls downfield on third down, and Rodgers is putting it right on him, and he's dropping the ball. Rodgers has to be able to depend on guys. Randall Cobb killed a few drives against the Vikings. That cannot happen. You're Randall Cobb. Right now, you're the number one receiver for the Green Bay Packers. You have to figure out how to catch the football.
But here's the good thing. It's not like Rodgers is going to lose faith in Randall Cobb overnight. It's not like, because if this happened with, Devontae Adams might not see another target for a game and a half. But with Randall Cobb, at least he's going to kind of throw him out of that slump, you hope. So
I think you're right. He'll keep going to Cobb. I think the big issue here is it's not just Randall Cobb. When Rodgers can't trust the whole group, including Randall Cobb, it's harder to get past some of these things. If Rodgers can trust another guy in the group and Cobb is struggling, it's not quite as bad, and it makes it easier to work through that, I think. But if you can't trust anyone, including Randall Cobb, that's got to get really frustrating. And we've seen Rodgers be openly frustrated on the football field this season, and we saw it against the Vikings. We saw drives where it looked like things were going really well, and then it stalled out, and Rodgers just had this look on his face like, what the hell is happening? He's frustrated. He's frustrated with that wide receiver group. He's just frustrated. And I think Randall Cobb's a big part of the issue.
Yeah, definitely seems to be a lot of frustration with Rodgers and the receivers. We've been seeing that. We saw it several times on Monday where receiver goes one way, Rodgers throws the other way, and we see him kind of mouthing off a little bit toward the receivers. One guy who's been particularly frustrating is Eddie Lacy, and holy crap did he show up against Minnesota. And so, Chris, I got to ask you, did benching Lacy create this Eddie Lacy that we're seeing again, or is he just feeling a heck of a lot better? What do you chalk up his success to?
Well, I think he's probably healthier than he was. But I think it may have been a wake-up call. I mean, a big wake-up call. Eddie Lacy was obviously the most talented running back on the Packers, but he gets, James Starks gets the start in San Diego, and then it's officially announced later that he's starting over Eddie Lacy even when Lacy is healthy. And he does for a few games, and it finally woke Lacy up, I think. One thing that I noticed is after the run, I'm sure you guys remember the run I'm talking about. I guess it was in either the late first quarter or early second quarter. Lacy had a nice big run with a spin move, and he finished the run by almost jumping up and down. He looked excited. So at least it looks like he thinks he's back. And I think a lot of his issues are mental. I think his conditioning is still a little bit of an issue, or it still will remain an issue, but he's back in the game, and that's encouraging. Does that mean he's going to be performing and have a 100-yard game the rest of the year? Maybe not, but to get him back in the mix and to continue handing him the ball was a really good thing, because you want to encourage him to come back. You need him. This team needs Eddie Lacy down the stretch to be a winning football team. They can get by in the beginning of the year with his struggles, but when the weather turns cold and the playoff picture comes into focus, they really do need Eddie Lacy. And I think Sunday went a long way to getting him back. Is he back? I'm not going to commit to that, but I was encouraged with what I saw. As frustrating as he's been the rest of the year, he looked really good.
Yeah, it is encouraging to see Eddie Lacy back to form. I don't know, is it going to happen consistently? I don't know. The offense has been so inconsistent. I don't know what's going to be consistent. It's hard to judge. And the offensive line's a big part of it. They played an okay game against the Vikings. That went a long way to helping Eddie Lacy have a good game. They need to keep improving play. The offensive line has been so inconsistent this season. This is not what the Packers expected to have going into the season. This is not what anybody predicted that they would have on their offensive line. There were talks about this offensive line being the best line in the league, and I don't even know if they're in the top 10 right now. They're so inconsistent. I don't even know if I could put them in the top 10. So Eddie Lacy needs that offensive line to play well, first of all. And I think they haven't been playing all that well this season, and that hasn't helped. Lacy has also dealt with injury issues. I do think he's fat, and I think it's a problem. But I think he knows how to play through it, and I think he's playing kind of angry after going through being benched, hearing how fat he is, having the media talk about how terribly large he is and how he doesn't care. And I think he was excited to prove people wrong. Fine, good. That's what lights your fire. I'm glad a fire has been lit because I'm tired of watching you suck. So, good. Eddie Lacy's back. He's performing right now. Fantastic. I'd like to see it another week. I'm not entirely sold that he's back because nobody's been consistently back. Aaron Rodgers had a decent game against the Vikings, and what's he going to do this week? I have no freaking clue. I couldn't begin to guess. I have no idea. I'm mostly confused this season, which is annoying. With this offense, to have the offense that the Packers have, and for the fan base to have to go through this like back and forth confusion session, I need it to end soon because I can't handle it. I'm like getting migraines. It's ridiculous.
By the way, good. You're talking about the offensive line. Nice job, J.C. Treader coming in and picking up where Corey Linsley let off. I mean, he looked very good, with the exception of a play or two, but that was encouraging.
No, he looked really, really good coming off the bench, and I like Corey Linsley, and he is the starter. He's going to come back and be the starter. So anybody who has any idea of maybe Treader fighting his way into keeping a starting position, no. Linsley's a great player, and I'm excited that the Packers found him. But man, how nice is it to have a center that comes off the bench and plays to that level? That's pretty fantastic. And maybe that's trade bait for later. If they have Treader play this week and he strings together a handful of good games, there will be teams that are looking for him. They're not going to give up anything crazy for draft picks. But yeah, Ted likes to stack up his draft picks, and Ted's actually more consistent in the later rounds with draft. So. I like it. I like where it's at. I like that they have those kinds of things happening. They got J.C. Treader can't be a backup forever, especially if he puts games together like he did against the Vikings, because I felt like that was starter quality football, which is saying a lot for J.C. Treader, who everybody kind of pegged as a guy who, we've only really seen him at tackle, and that's not been encouraging at all. Right. So we finally got to see a stint of him at center, and it looked really good. I like that the Packers have him sitting there. They'll have options in the offseason. They could possibly trade him. Now, let me say that a little differently. If he does this more, then they can possibly trade him. He needs to do it some more, but that was encouraging. That was a fantastic start, and they're on their way to having a piece that they can trade later. So that's great, and that's what you want. That's what you want with your backups. If you can move around, get some draft picks, and continue bringing in extra talent elsewhere and keep building up your team that way, I mean, that's the way Ted Thompson wants to do it.
Although, with as thin as the offensive line depth is perceived to be by the fan base, I wonder if they would even do that.
No, because here's the thing. If at the end of the day, J.C. Turner's coming to the end of his contract, he's not going to stay in Green Bay. Not if he feels like he can start somewhere. He's going to go or it's either going to be that or, I don't know. The Packers have done the center position so weird in the last few years. Like, they don't keep a consistent center, which is strange because you think they want to keep a guy who's got a relationship with their quarterback. But Scott Wells, they let him go, and then they brought in Jeff Saturday, and that was terrible. And then Evan Dietrich Smith, and he was gone, and then it was supposed to be J.C. Treader, and he got hurt, and then they brought in Corey Linsley, and so now here we are, and it's just been this carousel of centers coming in and out of this team. So I guess it's hard to say, but I like to think that with Treader, if he keeps playing well, they'll have a guy they can trade and maybe add something somewhere else. Especially like the tackle position, I think has been a disappointment this year. The left tackle specifically, David Bakhtiari, and there's nobody on the roster that you're thinking maybe eventually could win that spot and be a starter. But I don't think Bakhtiari's been good enough to want to keep him. I mean, I think Bakhtiari could be as good as we've seen him be, but this year he's been so inconsistent. I don't know that I have plans for him to stay there at left tackle without some kind of challenge.
I'll go further. I don't know that he's been inconsistent this year. I think he's been consistent, and that play has been consistently pretty bad.
Right. Well, yeah. Okay, you're right.
He's responsible for more 10-yard penalties probably than anyone else in the league, and it's frustrating. He's been brutal.
No,
so
he has been
I'm not convinced that I know he played well last year. I'm wondering where that's gone because he does not look good. I
don't think depth on the offensive line is at center. Like, I don't think the issue is at center in any way. Even if they don't have J.C. Treader, I think the biggest issues, even if they don't have Treader on the roster, I think the biggest issue with depth on the offensive line is at tackle. They just don't have, like, who's coming off the bench that you're comfortable with at tackle? Nobody's comfortable with Don Barclay, and he's going to be the first guy off the bench to play tackle. I like Don Barclay. I don't hate the guy, but I'm not comfortable with him when he comes in the game. And he's never going to play left tackle. David Bakhtiari has been bad this season, and I think the Packers are probably going to bring somebody in to challenge him next year. And we'll see. I think he can be good, and we saw that in his first few years. But can he pick up from where he was and start that over again? I don't know. This year has been so bad for him, and I don't know why. I can't make any sense of it. Like, where did the drop-off come from? Because it's not like he showed flashes of being this way as a player before. It's just he was decent before, and things were looking up, and suddenly it was like the bottom fell out, and it was just crap. I don't know what they're going to do, but I don't think they can't be planning on Bakhtiari being the future there at left tackle if he's going to play like that.
All right. Well, I'll say this much for J.C. Treader. He's a smart guy. So if he goes into free agency, he's a smart guy, went to Cornell. I think he's smart enough to stay with a winner and come back to Green Bay. So there you go, JC. That's my vote of confidence in you. I'm sure that'll mean a lot to you.
Wow.
And I'll tell you somebody else that our show has a vote of confidence in, and that would be our sponsor. Titletown Sound is brought to you by the law office of Christopher Schultz. Christopher specializes in traffic and municipal violations, wills, and estate planning. If you're in need of help, Chris has your back. Call 920-252-0692. Number again is 920-252-0692.
Yeah, guys, Chris is great. I had a traffic citation. Chris is taking care of that. But the best part about Chris is he's just been so easy to work with. I actually called a couple lawyers before I called Chris, and they were terrible to even talk to on the phone. Chris helped me out, and not only that, he was honest with me, but not a jerk about it. He told me where things were at, but he wasn't a jerk about it, and that was great. It was a breath of fresh air. If you're having issues that way, I definitely recommend giving him a call.
All right. On that note, we go into our Pick 3 segment. Packers were victorious over the Vikings, so the question comes up. If you could take any 3 Vikings and add them to the Packers roster, who would they be? Jeremy, you get to go first. It seems like it's a fairly easy 1 and 2, I think, with the Vikings, isn't it?
No.
No?
I don't know. I didn't prepare for Pick 3, as always. So I'm going to go with Adrian Peterson. I don't even want to do that. The dude beats children. I can't get into that. So, you know what? Scratch that. I'm going without AP. Kyle Rudolph will be my number 1 guy. Then I'm going to jump over to the defense. Jeez, I should have prepared. Harrison Smith. Have to go with Harrison Smith. You know what? I like Xavier Rhodes. I liked him before. I'm not sure that he's playing to the level he was at before. So I'm going to go with Anthony Barr.
Alrighty. Chris, have you got a Pick 3 ready?
Absolutely. I think this is an easy one, actually. I don't know why you're so confused. I would take first Kyle Rudolph. It's kind of an obvious one because of need. Second, I will take Ragnar because I feel for the guy. I think he got a raw deal. I think they should have given him what he asked for, his 20,000 a game or whatever it was. I think he's worth it. You don't get a big dude like that with a beard and a motorcycle every day. So I'd take him. And then the third player that I'll take is whoever operates that damn horn, because I want to eliminate the ability to operate that damn horn. It's
Nice.
They're down 17, they get first down, and we hear the horn. Like, let's give it up. Let's forget about it. Come on, that thing is so tired. So that's my pick 3, and mainly because I hate the Vikings and I can't imagine having any actual players on our team.
Wow.
I can't believe.
I didn't expect this. I didn't expect those answers.
No, I can't believe somebody farted while you were talking too. Oh wait, was that the Viking horn?
That was the Viking horn.
Oh, okay.
But I did simultaneously fart, so there's that.
Okay.
Well,
okay.
It's kind of the same sound. I mean, come on, it's the same. I mean, that's pretty much all it is. It's just a Viking fart. They play that every time they score a touchdown. It's terrible.
Yeah, I still hate that horn. I always have, always will. My 3 guys, fine, I'll pick Adrian Peterson. What do I care? I'll put him on my list. Kyle Rudolph, I think, was another slam dunk. Man, he could be so much better in a Packers offense than a Viking one, but that's life. My number 3 is going to be wide receiver Stephon Diggs. I'm not 100% sure that I buy into him long term, but he's doing pretty well this season. He's a top receiver for the Vikings, and he's keeping Cordarrelle Patterson off the field, which is good for Minnesota. So credit to him.
Well, I just want to say, you said last year that Charles Johnson would be their number 1 receiver, and you were wrong. But at the same time, I was arguing with you that Cordarrelle Patterson would be their number 1 receiver. So I was wrong too, but I just wanted to make sure to say you were wrong.
And real quick, as an ongoing theme, the Packers love to break records and streaks for opponents. So I believe Kyle Rudolph had his longest reception and maybe his most yards in a game, both against the Packers on Sunday. So that's fantastic.
It's what they do. It's just what they do. Just to clear this up, the Vikings like to play the Viking fart after every first down. I just wanted to make sure that was clear so that everybody knew that it is horribly obnoxious. It's not just for touchdowns, people.
No.
It's all game.
It's everything.
Terrible. It is terrible. And it's not the Viking horn anymore. It's now the Viking fart. That's just what it's permanently going to be called, the Viking fart, and they do it all game long. It's terrible. All right.
Yeah, it takes a lot of beans to get that horn going too.
Yeah.
But anyways, it's time for Twitter questions. Everybody's favorite part of the podcast, right?
Yeah.
Woo! All right. On that note, it's time to get into those questions. We got 4 of them lined up here. First one comes from our good buddy Cody Bauer at @CBauer NFL Draft on Twitter, and he had a couple questions for us. Why isn't the pass rush consistent, and why does the offense look like they don't practice? Let's go one at a time here. Why isn't the pass rush consistent? Chris, what do you think?
I'm going to give you a really bad answer. I don't know. It's something I ask myself. I don't know. I think Raji was still hurt for a couple of games. I think that was a big deal because he played well on Sunday and the pass rush was back, but he's not the only answer. Dayton Jones having a great game helped. I don't know. Maybe Jeremy can give an actual intelligent answer, but I can't tell you why it's so inconsistent. It's frustrating, though.
Prepare yourself for overwhelming intelligence. Ready?
It's going to be amazing. Hold on. Let me hit record.
I don't know. I feel like maybe part of it's scheme and the way Dom Capers is calling his defense. Maybe part of it is just effort. Like, Julius Peppers is not young Julius Peppers anymore. Last year he had a pretty decent season. This year he started the season well against the Bears. He'll probably have a good game this week, but after that he'll go back into silence mode.
I'm pretty sure Julius Peppers has had like 3 bye weeks this year already.
I think so.
He just takes his own,
In the past, in his career, he's been known as a guy to take some plays off. I think the on-off switch is now broken, and it's stuck on off mostly. I don't know who to blame it on. It can't just be about lack of effort. I mean, I know BJ Raji had an injury and he struggled with that probably for a few weeks. He's got to be pretty much over that now, but it's not all entirely on him. There were multiple games where we saw the defense get close to sacks, but not ever finish. Mike Daniels can't do it all on his own. He shows up pretty much every week, and he can't do it on his own. So I would have to say, I don't know. That's just where it's going to be. I don't know.
All right. And why does the offense look like they don't practice? Chris, more incredible insight from you on this one?
I'm pretty sure that's because they've actually stopped practicing in an effort to reduce injuries and increase unscouted looks. They're actually unscouted for themselves as well. So it's really a very sophisticated method of out-scheming opponents by simply not practicing, so even they are surprised by the plays that they roll out there on Sunday.
Yeah, I like that.
Interesting. Yes.
Just the element of surprise.
Absolutely. How can the other team be surprised if you're not surprised?
Well, now that all the wide receivers are wearing hoodies at practice, I feel like they'll probably get some things done.
Absolutely, yeah, and I think they were able to bring that squirrel back with them to Lambeau. So hopefully, he'll lead the Favre retirement or name enshrinement ceremony. He'll lead that out onto the field. It's going to be fantastic.
Well, just to be clear, because I don't want anybody to think the Packers are dealing with animal cruelty or anything. He is a cage-free squirrel. I'm pretty sure he's trained by Clay Matthews.
Lives on cheese curds. Yeah.
Clay Matthews looks a lot like Bigfoot / Sasquatch, like the Jack Lynx guy. I think they're very similar. And so the squirrel just kind of listens to everything Clay says. I'm pretty sure he's just following Clay around.
Yeah. He's pretty much the squirrel whisperer.
Yes, Clay Matthews, squirrel whisperer.
You don't get this kind of analysis on other podcasts, by the way.
You don't. Viking fart, squirrel whisperer, Bobbo's renaming podcasts, and what did you call it last week? Something
Pocket Monster.
Pocket Monsters. Pocket Monsters.
I'm still convinced that is actually the name of the podcast.
So why does the offense look like they don't practice? Dude, I don't know. I don't know what's happening. I think we've all dealt with the same frustration. We've seen a team come out and run the same offense week after week, regardless of how well it's working, right? I mean, that's been the biggest frustrating part of being a Packer fan this year.
I think, and I also think that the offensive play calling has looked disjointed. Like it's not building upon itself. It hasn't had a rhythm. I think this week it did more than it has in the past. They tried some different things. So I think that's part of it. I remember the first couple of games we thought, play calling is not a problem. I think it might be a little bit of an issue.
I think it might be a little bit of an issue too. And I think you're right. You make a very good point. Until this week, they were not running the football the way they did this week.
Yeah.
And it starts with you got to get your offense in a rhythm, and it starts with stacking some plays on top of each other. Play action doesn't work unless you show that you've established some kind of a run game. You can't just start running play action. And the other thing is simple stuff. Like people want to see Aaron Rodgers on more boots. Like I want to see the Packers run more of that because it works, because it's working in the offense, because Aaron Rodgers is fantastic when you get him out of the pocket, when you get him moving, when you get him using his legs. He's great. I want to see more of that. We've talked about wanting to see bunches, and they've done a little bit of that, but they've kind of, I don't know, they just haven't consistently stayed with some things that work. In the last, a few weeks ago, we saw them in a couple of games back-to-back start the game with some new stuff on offense and then switch right back to the stuff that they started the season with and run the same bland, boring offense, the predictable, quote-unquote, offense that we saw earlier in the year. So why did they look like they haven't practiced? I don't know, but I feel like it has a lot to do with the predictability that Josh Sitton was talking about. It's just too predictable. It's hard to look like you've got your crap together when you're just doing the same thing over and over again. The offense has to improve, and I think the way to do that is to mix it up a little bit. You got to run the ball more. You have to run some more of those screen plays, which, have shown recently to be successful. So there you go.
All right, before we move on to the next Twitter question, I have to ask, we need a name for that squirrel. So if it's working with Clay Matthews, I think we should call it like Clay Son or something like that.
I don't know. Your squirrel naming game is not strong. But what I do want to say is we need to recognize one of our followers, one of our listeners, Sam, at McCready Sam, McCreadie Sam. I'm going to tweet that name out. I'm going to pin it for a day here so that you can follow Sam, because he has promised us. Now, I'm not making this up. He has promised us that if we mention him on the podcast, he is going to whittle us a squirrel bobblehead. I don't know how he's going to do this. I don't know when, but I could not possibly be more excited about a squirrel being whittled for us. So please follow Sam.
Sam, I don't know what level what level of an artist you are.
I don't care.
I don't care. Accomplish this. Make it happen, and you will be our favorite person for at least a week. Okay? So just make that happen, first of all. Second of all, if you have any kind of artistic ability, I want to see you take that squirrel and put him in a James Jones jersey and a hoodie. I want the squirrel to be hoodied up. Just make it happen. If you can do it, great. That squirrel will mean so much to us. I'm excited to see your work. I'm excited to see what you can do. Man, I'm pumped. I hope you actually do it. Don't let us down. You can't make claims on Twitter if you're not going to follow through. That's how the real world works.
Alrighty. Well, everything on the internet is true, so I'm sure we'll have a squirrel bobblehead soon enough. Speaking of which, our next Twitter question. Remember, I almost forgot we were in this segment. At Rusty
That's only
Weiss,
because it's gone 20 minutes. That's why.
True enough. At Rusty Weiss had a question for us, our good buddy. He said, not sure I want to see Micah Hyde in coverage anymore. He can return punts, but what role could he play in the defense? Jeremy, your thoughts?
Well, I felt like after he left, things got corrected. I think Quentin Rollins looked pretty darn good, and I'm tired of seeing Micah Hyde trail tight ends over the middle. I'm tired of seeing it happen. So,
he's really good at following a tight end after a reception.
Right. He's really good at running behind a guy after he's caught the football.
I don't know. He fell down this week after he was chasing a guy.
Yeah.
That's not very good.
So, yeah, you're right. That's not very good. It's not good if you're falling down.
I don't know that you're going to see Micah Hyde, to Rusty's question. I don't know that you're going to get to see Micah Hyde much, considering they brought in, I forget who it was, they brought in a safety to look at.
DJ Swearinger.
That's right, because he may not be in good health, Mr. Hyde. So I'm concerned that he's, depth-wise, that he's really hurt because, you don't bring in Swearinger if you think Micah Hyde's going to be out a week or two.
Right.
So that would concern me, but I agree with you. I don't like to see him covering tight ends. I think he has a role. He's had a role in the past. That does worry me depth-wise.
No, I think depth-wise, yes, that's a concern. But I think it's time to change the role.
Yeah, I agree.
The last few weeks has been disappointing. So let's not keep smashing our head against the brick wall. Let's see something else. And if Quentin Rollins is it, if that's the something else and it works, let's stick with it. So, man, if Quentin Rollins can do it, if he can pull it off, sure, I'd like to see it go that direction.
All right. And certainly Micah Hyde, we hope the best for you. Hope you get healed up quickly. Just to be clear on that.
He was back in practice, so.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
There you go. James Corsmo, another buddy of ours, JK Sub 20, at JK Sub 20, on Twitter, said, compared to Richard Rodgers, Andrew Corliss is going to look like Gronk, isn't he? Chris, do you want to say yes first to this question?
No, he's not going to look like Gronk. He's going to look like Gronk riding a unicorn carrying a lightsaber compared to Richard Rodgers.
Yes, that's
a nice image.
That is beautiful. Yes. Yeah, Andrew Corliss is going to be quite the step up from Richard Rodgers, primarily because he could probably break a tackle when he has the football in his hand. Well,
he's also got that lightsaber, so that helps.
Right. That helps. That'll scare some people off. But he can run. Like Richard Rodgers, I don't know if it's the size of his butt that's a problem. Like he doesn't have any acceleration within his body. I think it's his giant butt weighing him down. His big keister, it's just too much for him. That guy cannot move. And not only that, when he has the football, it doesn't matter who's hitting him. He cannot break a tackle. That guy, yards after catch with Richard Rodgers, that's not a thing. It's not a thing. We're not going to see it ever, ever, ever. So, yeah.
So what you're saying is playing the position of tight end is very ironic considering the size of his ass.
Yes, that is exactly what I am saying.
Good.
That is not a tight end at all.
Oh, dear.
Jay's going to have a field day.
Okay, went from Minnesota Viking horn farts to talking about tight ends. All right. Jay has our final Twitter question this week at JYS_H. Favorite pastry not shaped like a tire in her tube? Jeremy, what's your favorite pastry that's not like whatever I just said?
Cake. All of the cake.
Interesting. Chris?
Normally I would go bear claw, but obviously this week, not possible. So I'm going to go straight up cheese Danish. Big fan.
Okay. I'm a little torn. I'm a little torn between apple pie and baklava.
Baklava's gross. Baklava is so gross.
Your face is gross.
So disappointing. It's so gross. I'm being flipped off. Bobbo's telling me I'm gross. It's gross.
Well, it's, obviously people can tweet us at Titletown Sound. You can tell us what your favorite pastry that's not shaped like an inner tube is. And you can tell Jeremy that his face is gross and that I'm right. On that note, speaking of being gross and not right, let's talk about the Chicago Bears. Starting with their offense, still got Jay Cutler at quarterback. Matt Forte's kind of banged up. Langford's been stepping up for him at running back, doing a pretty good job there as well. And I think Jeffrey's banged up too. So I guess, Chris, I'll just throw it to you. Chicago Bears offense, are you particularly concerned with them right now?
Well, I'm concerned with what Forte did to them week one, even though they beat them handily, but it was one of the more distressing performances of this defense against the run. Otherwise, against premier running backs, they've played pretty well. But nothing really frightens me that much. I mean, they've gotten Jay Cutler under control. They've made him less error-prone, which is good for him. But I still think under the lights at Lambeau, it's going to be a different story. They're going to get some pressure, and he's going to start chucking up ducks again. So, no, I'm not really worried about the offense.
No, I agree. The one positive for the Bears this year is that they have gotten Jay Cutler under control, and you can't necessarily depend on him to throw as many picks as he used to. He's having one of his best seasons, if not his best season. The Bears have a long way to go, and that's not a surprise. They still, I mean, they're having an okay season, but they have a long way to go still till they're good, and I'm sorry, I'm just not concerned. Just like I wasn't concerned when the Packers played the Lions, and we saw how that turned out. So, mass confusion, mass hysteria, I don't know. This podcast is full of lots of I don't knows. I think I'm just going to name it We Don't Know. That's what it's going to be.
Well, it's okay. It's the first step toward wisdom is admitting I don't know. So we're going to be really smart by about 2034 probably.
Yeah, that's not too far off.
A rough timetable. The Bears defense, kind of a mixed bag looking at the stats for their defense. Number 4 against the pass, but 25th against the run. They're 22nd in points allowed, just over 25 points per game allowed. So I don't know, Chris, I'll throw it to you again. The Bears defense, do you think there's any particular reason to be concerned with, I don't know what they've got there, Lamar Houston, Pernell McPhee?
Well, what I know they don't have is Peanut Tillman. And until the day that man dies, he will be forcing fumbles. So without him there, it makes me feel a lot better about the defense. But thankfully, Eddie Lacy got started again this Sunday because he's going to be necessary against the Bears, who give up a lot to the run. And their pass defense is pretty reasonable. So I'd expect the passing offense to not be as strong, especially on a short week. Quarterbacks and receivers tend to have trouble on short weeks on those Thursday games, even though this is Thanksgiving. But I would expect the run game to be very important. So the fact that they've gotten that started again, I expect them to lean heavily on it. I hope they do. I think that's kind of the key, one of the keys. So the defense for the Bears is not as bad as we expected, especially that secondary. But it doesn't exactly, strike fear in the hearts of opponents.
I think it helps the Packers that Eddie Lacy played the way he did against the Vikings. It's something that now the Bears have to be considering even more as they go into the game. But if Lacey can continue on with what he did against the Vikings, I mean, that's going to be a huge help. The Bears, yes, they're fourth against the pass, but all those other numbers, they don't sound very good. So, it's going to take more than just that. And the Packers haven't been very good through the air anyway. So, I mean, what's to be concerned about, right? I don't know. Eddie Lacy needs to play well. Has to happen. And he's got to play well, not just in this game, but going forward for the rest of the season. They need Eddie Lacy to be Eddie Lacy. And hopefully it started this past week against the Vikings, and it continues on with the Bears. But if he's playing well against the Bears, I think the offense will get rolling, even through the air.
All right. It's time to play Fantasy Pick'em, and we are adding a new element to Fantasy Pick'em starting this week. Whoever wins the Fantasy Pick'em game the previous week, at the end of this week's show, would get 30 seconds to say whatever they want. No censorship from the other two guys. 30 seconds of whatever you want to talk about on the line.
And by the way, we did straight up steal this from around the horn. We understand that. So we're not claiming that this is anything original. We just thought it would be fun.
Yes, we straight up stole it. We will give it back. But we're just going to borrow it for a little while. And I'm already going to call shenanigans on this because last week in Fantasy Pick'em, we actually finished in the order we drafted. So Chris took third, I took second, and Jeremy wasn't here. And Kelly picked in his absence.
Thanks, Kelly.
And picked James Jones and Teddy Bridgewater, who I believe were the top 2-point getters in this little league last week. So Jeremy ends up winning this week. So shenanigans, tomfoolery, and all that nonsense going on this week. What can I say?
Call it what you like. A W is a W.
I call it 30 seconds of utter terror toward the end of the show when Jeremy gets to say whatever he wants.
It's going to be good.
That said, it is time for Fantasy Pick'em. Chris, you will get to pick first. I will pick second. Jeremy will get the turn. We're talking Bears and Packers. Chris, who are you going to go with the first pick?
I don't think statistically that Rodgers makes the most sense because of the way the Bears have played against the pass and because it's a Thursday game. But Brett Favre will be back. Bart Starr will be back. And so even though it doesn't make sense, Aaron Rodgers is going to throw for 700 yards and 16 touchdowns, so I will take him.
That was exactly what I was going to say. All right, so I'm going to feel dirty doing this, and I'm just going to say this. I hope that this pick ends up being horrible, and if it makes me take third place next week, I will do it with a smile. I will have to take Jay Cutler because I don't want Jeremy to have a quarterback. There you go. Jeremy.
That's fine. I don't need a quarterback. I will take Eddie Lacy, and I will take Alshon Jeffrey.
Alshon Jeffrey. All right. All right, so that leaves me with Packer to pick. And I am going to say Randall Cobb has a good bounce-back week, even though, and I say this every time I take him, he does nothing when I pick him. But that's okay. I'm going to take third this week anyway. I'll take Randall Cobb.
And this is beautiful that I'll take Matt Forte. If he fell right into my lap, the man's going to run for 172 yards.
Nope, it's not going to happen. You see what the Packers defense just did to Adrian Peterson.
That's true. And Peterson was feeling 100%, more or less. So, interesting. All right, moving on to True False. And again, the winner of Fantasy Pick'em this week gets 30 seconds at the end of next week's show to say whatever complete and utter nonsense we come up with. But like that ever stopped me. But anyway, time to move on to True False, where we had a very average week last week. Again, Kelly was with us last week. And, it's kind of disturbing how well Kelly is doing at our games, I got to say, because Kelly won Fantasy Pick'em last week, and Kelly went 3 for 5 on the True False last week, while the rest of us all went 2 and 3. We all got 2 out of 5 right.
Seriously?
So basically,
We could save a lot of time by just randomly picking true and false, and we'd have better records.
We seriously need to just get a monkey.
I don't think it's in the budget, but I'll look into it.
A monkey would cure the segment, yes.
Or we could have that squirrel pick, too. That would work. But anyway, so Chris is still winning by 5 over Jeremy, and I'm still 1 behind Jeremy. So, take what you will from that. So it's time for true false, and I got 5 true false questions for you guys. So true false number 1, Aaron Rodgers finishes with more than 300 yards passing. Rodgers with 248.2 yards per game through the air this season. He is averaging 304.7 passing yards per game over the last 3 games. And frankly, if the Packer offense gets back on track, it's probably going to be with a boom. So, Jeremy, Aaron Rodgers finishes with more than 300 yards passing. True or false?
Oh, gosh. I want to say true. I really do. I feel like, he only had 189 yards passing against the Bears in week 1. Jeez. And they're 4th in the league against the pass. I'm going to say false. I have to say false. I feel like, it's doable, sure, but I don't think the chances are very high.
I already told you my answer. 700 yards passing, 16 touchdowns. That's true.
Oh, gosh. Reasonable.
Good call, Chris. Good call. I'm going to say true as well. Because, basically, your logic is impeccable.
Thank you.
Yes. True false number 2. The Packers defense records at least 3 sacks. In the first meeting this season, the Packers had 2 sacks of Jay Cutler. They had 6 last week against Minnesota, and they are averaging just under 3 sacks per game right now. I believe it's at 2.9. So the Packers defense records at least 3 sacks. Jeremy, true or false?
They may be averaging 2.9, but they did have like 2 or 3 games where they disappeared completely, and that will bring your average down. I think the Packers defense has returned to a place where they are bringing the pass rush quite successfully. I'm going to say true. And not only that, I'm going to throw this in. Dayton Jones gets one.
Nice. I think you're right. I think the answer is true. Especially, I just think this could be a special night. I really do, with all the excitement that's going to be around the game and a home game on Thanksgiving. And yeah, true.
All right. I hate to agree with you guys, but I have to agree. And I will say true to that one as well. On to true false number 3. Jay Cutler has a traditional quarterback rating of 70 or better. Jay Cutler's numbers against the Packers historically suck. So, Jeremy, Jay Cutler has a traditional quarterback rating of 70 or better, true or false?
I think Jay Cutler has improved this season. I hate to give Jay Cutler any kind of credit or give him any kind of love, but I'm going to say true. I can see it happening. Unless the pass rush is mighty and feisty and angry, that might cause for Jay Cutler, be enough for Jay Cutler to throw picks. But I'll say true.
I'm gonna go all sunshine and rainbows still, and say false. I have no real analysis behind that.
All right.
Sunshine and rainbows is plenty of analysis. Plenty
of I don't knows today. I picked Jay Cutler in fantasy pick'em, and I'm expecting to finish dead last, so I'm going to say false. Not still. True false. Number 4, Bears defense records at least 3 sacks of Aaron Rodgers. I have no stats to back that up whatsoever because I didn't bother looking up how many sacks the Bears have. So there you go. So Bears defense records at least 3 sacks of Aaron Rodgers. Jeremy, true or false?
Oh, I'm going to say false. I know the Packers' offensive line hasn't been all that good, and they've been hot and cold. They've been good sometimes, bad at others. I'm going to say false. I think 3 is a little much. Maybe they get 2.
Yep. Again, all optimism all the time. So I'm going to go with false. Right? That's the optimistic answer.
Yes, it is.
Yes. I am tempted to say true because maybe Vic Fangio is going to throw something different at the Packers. But looking at their number now, they have 20 sacks on the season. It's not great. It's good enough for me to say false and agree with you guys once again, which, as I said, I hate doing. But true false number 5, Aaron Rodgers throws at least 3 touchdowns. Out of 10 games, he has only done that 3 times this season, including week 1 against the Chicago Bears. So Aaron Rodgers throws at least 3 touchdowns. I feel like we should skip Chris because we know his answer, but Jeremy, go ahead.
Aaron Rodgers throws at least 3 touchdowns. Well, I want to say false just because it hasn't really been happening, but it's Bears week. Bart Starr's in the house. Brett Favre's in the house. It's Thanksgiving. All of those things push me to the true answer.
16 is more than 3, so I'm going to go with true. Brett Favre is going to throw 2 touchdown passes. It's going to be such an amazing night.
All right. I was going to make a joke about he's going to throw 2 picks too, but I'm not going to.
Way to avoid that. Way to avoid the joke, Bobbo. Good job.
Yes. I'm going to say false just because I don't want to agree with you guys again, and I have a lot of catching up to do in this game. So what the heck? I'll say false. Packers score their touchdowns on the run, and yeah, who knows? Maybe Randall Cobb will pass for a touchdown. Why not?
Nice.
Possible.
So on that note,
let's hope not. I don't want.
On that note, it's time for 30 seconds of glory. Jeremy, you have 30 seconds to say whatever the heck you want, and Chris and I will cover our ears. And go ahead.
Now, seeing that Kelly won in Fantasy Pick'em, I felt that it was only fitting that she would have the 30 seconds to say what she has to say. And so I have something here from Kelly. These are her words, not my own. Okay, here we go. From Kelly. I love Aaron Ripkowski. I was wrong to say otherwise. The boys of Titletown Sound Off are awesome and not nerds in any way. We at Out of the Pocket wish to be as cool as the guys at Titletown Sound Off, and I apologize for ever making jokes about them. Thank you for having me on your show. Please forgive my nonsense. Please don't delete me. So there you go from Kelly herself. She now loves Aaron Ripkowski. We have won her over to the dark side, and the world is now a peaceful place. It's good to be in a land of peace and hope and harmony.
I love that you started off the first 30 seconds of glory with an inside joke. That's fantastic.
And I'm just gonna say this: Kelly, of course, is on another podcast. I am going to be very. That was very nice of her to say that, and I'm looking forward to listening to Pocket Monster this week.
I'm looking forward to the Twitter rampage that's coming. I do want to say this: we didn't actually put this in. We didn't put the segment in. We talked about it before. I wanted to do a "Who I Got Beef With" segment, so that's what I'm going to do. Who I got beef with. All right. We talked about this a few weeks ago. We talked about how I'm not sold on Dom Capers. Chris isn't sold on Dom Capers. I don't remember where Bobbo is. He usually just disagrees.
Bobbo's just non-committal, yeah.
He never agrees, and so I don't ever listen to what he actually has to say because I don't believe a word he's saying. Because no matter what I say, he's saying the opposite. That is what it's going to be. But, okay, we have now agreed, Chris and I, that we are fully on the Fire Dom Capers train. All right?
Yep.
Fine. We're on that train. Choo-choo. We're chugging along. Now, it took a long time for me to get on the train. As I said before, I've held the ticket for a long time. But people on Twitter, every time the Packers come out and they finally play a good game on defense, you bring out this stupid question. Is the hashtag FireCapers trending? Okay. So because the defense finally performs, you criticize people who think Dom Capers should be fired. That's like saying, I went to McDonald's and got a cheeseburger. I went to McDonald's and got 3 cheeseburgers. I've gone to McDonald's now, I've had 4 cheeseburgers. 2 of the 4 cheeseburgers tasted like a turd, but the other 2, the last 2 that I had, were delicious cheeseburgers. I will eat McDonald's the rest of my life. No, you had 2 turd cheeseburgers, you probably never want another one, okay? It's a stupid thought to say this inconsistent defense that has been inconsistent for a long time. You think, like, okay, 1 week the defense finally shows up and they get all these sacks. Great, it's no longer a turd cheeseburger. Well, guess what? Next week, the turd cheeseburger could come back, and I'd rather avoid the turd cheeseburger for the rest of my life. No more turd cheeseburgers. I'm sorry that you think it's hilarious to say, where's the hashtag fire capers, blah, blah, blah. Where is it? It's right here. It's at Titletown Sound Off. This is where it lives, and it's going to stay here forever. I want to like Dom Capers, and I've wanted to like him for a long time, but the inconsistency is a problem. Fine, 1 week you look like He-Man. Well, most of the time you look like some nerdy kid down the street named Percy. Figure your crap out. Be in the middle. Like, you don't even have to be on one extreme or the other. Be in the middle consistently, and I won't hate you so much. Where's the Fire Capers hashtag? It's right here. Bring it to me. At TTSO_Jeremy. Hashtag Fire Capers.
Very good. Yeah, so let's move on to predictions. The Green Bay Packers hosting the Chicago Bears. And I'm going to let Jeremy settle down for a minute. So, Chris, I'm going to throw it to you first. Aaron Rodgers is going to have 16 touchdowns, and it sounds like the Packers are going to win by quite a bit in your mind. Right. But what is the exact score?
Right, you got 16 touchdowns plus 2 Mason Crosby field goals. Final score 118-0.
Nice. Yeah, no, I think 118-0 is a very realistic score. I think that could happen. But I'm going to be a little less generous to the Packers, and I'm going to say the Packers win. I think it's closer than people think, but I think it's a higher score than what the Packers have been in recently. I think the Packers win 31-28.
31-28. Kind of a close score there. All right. Interesting.
And I should say this differently. It's not recently, but the Packers, 31 for the Packers offense has felt like pulling teeth. So I feel like 31 points is quite generous at this point.
All right. I am going to say Packers 34-18, as I think they could start to run off with this one. And I hope they do. I'd like to really destroy the Bears and see the offense get back on track, and especially the destroying the Bears part. I would particularly love that. So, Jeremy, we missed you last week, especially at this point in the show.
I forgot some critical parts of the show.
Sorry,
I'll wrap up, and then we sat here for about 25 minutes, I think, before we realized we should stop doing this. So,
all right. Well, before I get to that, Chris has tweeted out my Dom Capers is a turd cheeseburger quote on Twitter, and Aaron Nagler has called it slander. So, this will not be a liked opinion, I feel. Facebook or Twitter is going to bring the heat, and I'm okay with that. That's fine. Bring the heat, but I'm going to live on this. Dom Capers is a turd cheeseburger. Titletown Sound Off is a fantastic podcast. Out of the Pocket agrees with me, especially Kelly. She loves our podcast, and she made that very clear tonight with some kind, loving words. So thank you for listening to Titletown Sound. Thank you for putting up with a lot of BS and a lot of stupid stuff and a lot of weird things. Viking fart. What else happened today?
I don't think we need to recap. Let's just move on.
Let's come on. Let's recap. It's going to be good. Okay. Thank you for listening. As always, we have content at the website for you to be reading. TitletownSoundoff.com. Go there. Get on the forum. Tell me what you think Dom Capers is. Maybe he's not a turd cheeseburger. Maybe he's a piss sandwich. I don't know. You bring me your ideas and your thoughts. I'd love to hear them.
Oh, dear. What happened to this show? What happened to this show? It's like back in episode 1, we were sitting around having important discussions about psychology and thermodynamics and things like that. And we've gotten to this point, episode 60, and we're sitting here like, I know how toast works.
All right, Bobbo, you know how toast works. Do you have anything to say before the podcast ends?
I have 2 things I would like to say. Actually, I have a lot of things I'd like to say, but I can't say most of them on the podcast. One is, of course, don't forget to pet your cat. And the other one is I'm considering changing my answer on the pastry question. Because apparently there's a thing called a fish-shaped pastry that they have in Japan and South Korea. Kind of enticing, I got to admit.
Nope. All right. Chris, do you have anything to say before the podcast is over?
Good night, Prince Janice.
Yes, good night, Prince Janice. Thank you for listening to Titletown Sound. What was this, episode 59? 60. Episode 60. Wow, we're clicking along. Thanks for listening. Guys, we will bring you a podcast next week. You can hit us up on Twitter at TTSO_Jeremy, which you already know. Chris is at TTSO_Chris. Bobbo is at That's Our Bobbo. And you can tweet the website at Titletown Sound. Connect with us, talk with us. We'd love to talk to you guys. And we'll bring you a podcast next week. Thanks for listening.
Are you looking for some signed Packer memorabilia?
Look no further than Waukesha Sports Card.
If a Green Bay Packer can sign it, Waukesha Sports Cards has it.
Check our website for upcoming Packer player and legend signings.
Go to WaukeshaSportsCards.com.
Eddie Lacy, Mike Daniels, Gilbert Brown, Don Barclay, Micah Hyde, your Green Bay Packers, yesterday's legends and today's superstars. From corporate or nonprofit events to private parties, add some spice, hire a Packers player from Mayfield Sports Marketing. For details, just go to PackersTalk.com and click on Player Appearances.